I'm Fatima and I'm 30. When I first met Gabriel, my husband, I felt like I had hit the jackpot. Let me tell you, my past was littered with trust issues, but there was something about him that made me want to let my guard down. I was always the kind of girl to keep tabs on her man to make sure he wasn't sneaking around, and that's just how I was, a bit of a control freak, and I had my reasons. I'd had my heart broken before and I didn't want to experience that kind of pain again. So when I met Gabriel, I was cautious at first. But he was charming, kind, and said and did all the right things. I found myself falling in love with him, and before I knew it, we were married. We got hitched when I was 26, despite only dating for a year, and life seemed perfect. However, things took an unexpected turn when he brought up the idea of opening up our relationship after being married for 2 years. It caught me completely off guard. Now, before you call me old-fashioned, I have nothing against opening up a marriage, but after 2 years? Come on. People only did that later down the line, right? When things were running stale. Regardless, I knew that polyamory just wasn't something for me. And before you start with, okay, well, why didn't you have this discussion before you were married? Just know that we did. When we were dating, he'd mentioned it, kind of casually, so I thought he was joking. I laughed a bit. But I made it abundantly clear that an open relationship wasn't something I was comfortable with at all. And if he really wanted that, we should go our separate ways. He told me that it was just a joke, and I believed him. But now, 2 years into our marriage, he was bringing it up again, and I'm not going to lie, it made me furious. I felt like he had lied to me in the beginning about how much he wanted to open up the relationship. It wasn't just about trust, it was about the fact that he seemed to disregard how I felt about it. I thought we were happy together, and this request just threw me for a loop. It made me question everything. Had he not been content in our marriage? Why did he want to be with other people? These thoughts always gnawed at me, and I couldn't help but feel hurt and betrayed and lied to. Gabriel, you've been lying to me all along. You've always wanted an open relationship, haven't you? No, Fatima, it's not like that. I was just curious about it, that's all. I didn't think I'd actually be interested in doing it. Don't give me that. You brought up the whole polyamory thing when we were dating. You lied to me and then claimed it was a joke. But it was clear that you'd been thinking about it long before we even got married. No, that's not true. I love you and I love our life together. I don't really want to be with other people. It was just a fleeting thought. Look, just forget the whole thing, okay? I didn't mean it. You expect me to believe that? You mentioned it when we were dating and now you're bringing it up again? It's obvious that you've been considering this for a while and you just hid it from me. Fatima, I didn't want to upset you. I thought I could suppress those thoughts. But they kept resurfacing. Suppress those thoughts? And for how long, Gabriel? For the rest of our lives? You kept your true feelings from me, and that's a betrayal of trust. I can't believe you'd lie about something so important. This is literally why people end up cheating on each other. Why would you put us in such an awkward position? Fatima, I'm really sorry. I just didn't want to lose you, and I thought I could get past it. But I understand how you feel, and I should have been honest from the beginning. I appreciate your honesty now, but it's too late. Our values and desires are too different, and I can't be in a marriage where my partner is unhappy. It's time to make a choice. My decision to give my marriage another chance weighed heavily on me. I genuinely loved Gabriel and I desperately wanted our relationship to work. But the reality was proving to be more complicated than I had hoped for. The newfound agreement of open and honest communication in our marriage didn't seem to be holding up. At least I was holding it up on my end, that is. It really felt like their fights were escalating, and I can say with certainty that it wasn't my fault. I was always trying my best to maintain a positive and supportive atmosphere, but Gabriel was frequently in a foul mood, and any attempts at cheering him up were always met with hostility. This, as you can imagine, led to more arguments and fights. Each day I would wonder if I was doomed to always have troubled and toxic relationships. I saw my therapy sessions as a way to grow and become a better person, while Gabriel seemed stagnant. The positive changes in my behavior, such as avoiding yelling or arguing and instead seeking constructive solutions to our issues, didn't sit well with him for some reason. It was as if he missed the toxicity of their past relationship, which was ridiculous to think about. Despite my own personal growth and maturation, I couldn't help but feel the weight of our crumbling relationship. I had hoped for a fresh start when I decided to stay, but it was becoming increasingly evident that some issues ran too deep to be resolved on their own, especially if one of us wasn't willing to work on their own demons. I took the initiative to suggest couples therapy, believing that professional guidance could help us navigate the complexities of our relationship. However, Gabriel always refused the idea, insisting that they didn't need therapy. He viewed our situation as fine, even when it was clearly not. As my therapist wisely pointed out, one person couldn't force the other into therapy. The willingness to seek help should come from both sides and within. If not, resentment and tension could build, further straining our already fragile relationship. Needless to say, I was frustrated and tired of trying to improve our marriage all on my own. I felt like I was parenting someone, and the last thing I was going to do was coddle a grown man. So I stopped pushing Gabriel to join me in therapy, as the therapist suggested. This decision led to even more distance between us. It seemed as though Gabriel was resisting any positive changes, which was always baffling to me. I felt stuck. Obviously, my heart still belonged to Gabriel, but my mind was growing tired of the constant emotional roller coaster and having to do the majority of the emotional labor in the house. The foundation of trust we needed to survive was crumbling under the weight of all the unresolved issues and the unwillingness to confront them. This man would sometimes pick fights with me for no apparent reason. I would try and remain calm as always, but he would double down and be so reactive that I would need to get away from him just so that I could hear myself think. It was exhausting, and my patience with him was wearing thin. Fatima, you've just changed so much. You don't even care about me anymore, do you? Gabriel, that's not true. I care about you deeply. You know this. Then why is it that when we have issues, you're always so calm and nonchalant about it? Let me get this straight. You're upset with me because I have good conflict resolution skills? That's not what I said. Okay, look, I'm just trying to find better ways to handle our disagreements and make our relationship stronger. Well, I don't like it. I feel like you don't even love me. Gabriel, my love for you is the reason I'm trying to improve our relationship. I want us to be happy together. Happy? Happy like you're Mrs. Perfect with all your therapy and coping mechanisms? Gabriel, therapy has helped me grow and understand myself better. I'm not perfect, but I'm trying to be a better partner for me and for you. You could both benefit from therapy, you know. It's never too late to join me. No, I don't need therapy. It's not for me. Gabriel, it's not about being broken. It's about gaining tools and insights to make our relationship stronger. I think it could really help us communicate and understand each other better. I'm fine the way I am. You're the one who's changed. I'm changing because I want us to be better. I want us to work through our issues together. It's not about who's right or wrong. It's about us. It's not you versus me. It's us versus the problem. As the months went by, I continued to improve my communication and conflict resolution skills through therapy. while Gabriel seemed to grow more and more bitter. My therapist constantly asked me how I felt about Gabriel refusing to change and become a better person, and I would vent about how exhausting it was. Still, I didn't want to leave because I desperately wanted our relationship to work out. I held on to the hope that things would get better and that we could find a way to reconnect. However, my journey of healing and self-discovery through therapy made me realize that I had been lying to myself all along. One day, I couldn't keep my feelings bottled up any longer. I brought up the idea of divorce to Gabriel since he clearly seemed unhappy. But his reaction was surprising. His world seemed to shatter and he broke down. I mean, full-on ugly crying, begging me to stay. He told me that he couldn't imagine his life without me and that he was willing to do whatever it took to keep us together. I decided to give our relationship yet another chance, but with a condition. I told Gabriel that the only way we could stay together was if he started going to therapy. It didn't matter if he went on his own or with me. The important thing was that he needed to learn more about himself and work on his issues. I explained how therapy was always a positive step towards personal growth. To my surprise, Gabriel finally agreed to start therapy. It felt like a turning point in our relationship. We began attending couples counseling sessions together, and for the first time in a long while, things started looking up. Gabriel and I even began discussing the possibility of having children. It seemed like we were on the path to rebuilding our relationship, and I hoped that this time things would truly improve between us. As things appeared to be improving, I started noticing that Gabriel was using the language and ideas we learned in therapy to manipulate and control situations in his favor. Apparently, it's called therapy speak, and people tend to adopt psychological terms to justify their bad behaviors and not take accountability. Just when I thought things couldn't get worse, guess what he did? Just guess. He raised the issue of an open relationship again. And this time I completely lost my cool. I couldn't contain my anger and frustration any longer. I yelled at him, asking him what his problem was. I reminded him that I had made it clear from the very beginning that an open relationship was something I genuinely did not want. Gabriel tried to frame it as me being unfair by forcing him to go to therapy while I couldn't even compromise on this aspect of our relationship. I had to set him straight, explaining that my boundaries were not open to negotiation. It wasn't a compromise, it was a violation of my clearly defined limits, and he was refusing to accept and respect that. I pointed out that I never forced him into therapy, as he was saying, and I had always been willing to consider a divorce if that was what he truly wanted, since he was clearly unhappy. In fact, it was Gabriel who seemed distraught and eager to stay together, even though it was clear that our compatibility had faded over time. My words deeply hurt him, apparently. Gabriel genuinely believed we were soulmates, and I wanted to believe it too. However, I couldn't ignore the mounting evidence that our relationship was burdened by conflict and incompatibility. All I wanted was a drama-free life, even if it meant letting go. The disagreement resulted in our most significant falling out to date. Gabriel ended up staying at a friend's house for like 2 months while we tried to figure out our relationship dynamic. It was exhausting, and I felt torn about what to do next. My therapy sessions continued to remind me that I needed to end things with Gabriel, even if it was going to be painful. Each time I tried to bring it up with him, though, he would break down all over again and promise to do better, to change. And every time, his efforts would only last for a month or so before he returned to his old habits, showing little consideration for our relationship and triggering my unresolved issues. Fast forward to when I was 30 and Gabriel was 32. Things had become somewhat stale but stable in our relationship. I was still willing to put in the effort to make things better for us, even though it felt like I was pulling teeth, but I was determined to try my best. Then, one day, while I was cleaning up in the living room, I noticed Gabriel's phone buzzed with a call from someone saved as work wife in his contacts. My heart started racing and I immediately picked up the phone to answer and find out who the hell his work wife was, because I sure as hell didn't know. The lady on the other end, assuming she was speaking to Gabriel's wife, introduced herself as Daya. When I asked, "Who the hell is this?" I wasted no time in confronting her, demanding to know who she was and what she wanted. Daya tried to assure me that there was nothing romantic happening between her and Gabriel, that it was just some innocent workplace flirting and that I shouldn't read too much into it. But her words did little to help my rising suspicions, and I wasn't about to take her at face value. I mean, I barely knew the lady. I hung up the phone and marched over to Gabriel, my anger simmering just beneath the surface. I was trying so hard to remember all the things I learned in therapy, but in that moment I swear I wanted blood. I demanded an explanation, wanting to know what the hell was going on and whether he was cheating on me. His response was to deny any wrongdoing, saying that he would never do such a thing and that I was overreacting. "Gabriel, I'm not overreacting. I can't believe you just let that woman call herself your work wife without talking to me about it. It hurts my feelings. Why can't you see that?" "Seriously, Fatima? You're always so overbearing and controlling. Can't I have friends at work? Get over yourself." "I'm not against you having friends at work, but why would you let her call herself your work wife? That's a boundary that should have been discussed between us." "You're too controlling. You want to manage every aspect of my life, and I can't breathe without your permission. It's suffocating." "It's not about control, Gabriel. It's about respect and open communication in our relationship. I just don't get why you would do this to me." "Well, I don't. I don't need your approval for my friendships." "If you can't respect me and our relationship enough to have a simple conversation about boundaries, then maybe this isn't the right relationship for either of us." "Oh, here we go again, everybody. Fatima with the urge to end every single relationship she's been in. You'd think all that money wasted on therapy would actually teach you something about yourself. What the hell are you even on about? You love giving up on things too easily. Haven't I shown you how much I love and care for you? I've fought for us so many times, but it seems like you can't wait to get away from me." "That's not true. Look, I don't want to fight with you. Dr. Ramsey told us that this isn't going to be productive. So I'm going to give you your space to cool off. I'm going to go to work. Do I have your permission, Your Highness?" I couldn't ignore the sinking feeling in my chest. The sense that Gabriel wasn't being entirely truthful. But honestly, you all, I was just so exhausted I didn't know what to do. As our wedding anniversary was approaching, I decided to plan something special for Gabriel. Despite our recent fight, I wanted to show him that I cared and valued our relationship. I didn't want to come across as controlling, as he had accused me of being, but I believed a heartfelt surprise could mend our relationship and bring us closer together. For our anniversary, I planned to surprise him with carefully chosen gifts and a spontaneous trip to Hawaii. I thought that a change of scenery might just be what we needed to rekindle the spark in our relationship. I meticulously planned every detail, from the gifts I knew he would love to the activities we could do together during our getaway. I had been so excited about the surprise anniversary trip to Hawaii that I decided to leave work at noon instead of my usual 5 p.m. to surprise him, of course, and to get ready to head to our destination. I thought we could get an early start on our trip and have more time to enjoy each other's company. To make sure the surprise remained a secret, I parked my car a couple of blocks away from our house. I wanted to make sure Gabriel wouldn't be suspicious of my early arrival and that he'd be genuinely surprised. When I quietly walked up to our home, I felt a rush of excitement mixed with nervous anticipation. I was eager to see Gabriel's reaction when he discovered the surprise I had planned. But as I tiptoed towards the front door, I heard something that shattered my heart into a million pieces. The sounds coming from inside were unmistakable. It sounded like Gabriel was with another woman, and it sounded like they were getting down and dirty. My heart pounded in my chest as I struggled to comprehend what I was hearing. How could this be? Just moments ago, I was filled with hope for our relationship, and now the reality was crashing down around me. I wanted to burn the whole world. There was no way in hell that this man was cheating on me after everything we had been through. I just couldn't accept it. I went back to my car feeling like an idiot, but I guess this is just what happens when you refuse to leave someone who's clearly bad for you. As I sat in my car, tears streaming down my face, I couldn't believe the betrayal I had just witnessed. The man I thought I knew, the man I had planned a surprise anniversary trip for, was in our bedroom with another woman. And I suspected that it was his platonic work wife at that. The pain and anger swelled inside me, and I thought I was going to explode. I knew I couldn't let this slide. I needed to get back at them, to make them feel the humiliation I was experiencing. So I dialed 911. As I spoke to the operator, I mustered all the acting skills I could to sound frantic, telling them I believed there was a break-in at my home because I could hear loud noises inside. I told them to come quickly because I thought they had a weapon and that I was in my car a couple of blocks away because I was scared. The police took my call seriously, thank God, and assured me they'd dispatch officers right away. As I waited for them, I pulled my car closer to our house, ready to catch them in the act. Soon enough, the police arrived, and I approached them, identifying myself as the homeowner and the one who made the call to 911. I explained the strange sounds I had heard, emphasizing that I feared for my safety. The officers decided to take action, of course, and the situation quickly drew the attention of our curious neighbors, who had come outside to see what was happening in our normally quiet neighborhood. The police didn't waste any time. They banged really hard, no pun intended, on our front door and threatened to enter forcibly if no one responded. I'm guessing the reason why Gabriel and whoever he was screwing was trying to look half decent before they were exposed to the world was because they weren't answering. When their warnings went unheard, they broke down the door and entered the house. The commotion that followed could be heard from outside, but I patiently waited behind a cop car, knowing that the moment of truth was approaching. The officers soon dragged Gabriel and the lady out of our home, both of them half-dressed and thoroughly embarrassed. I had succeeded in my plan to expose their affair to the world. It wasn't just about catching them in the act, it was about making them understand the pain and humiliation they had caused me, and damn, it felt good. As Gabriel and the lady were being escorted to the waiting squad cars, they locked eyes with me, and Gabriel, in a desperate attempt to help his embarrassing situation, urged me to tell the officers that they weren't intruders and that I knew him. However, I played along with my charade, pretending not to recognize him, and I told the officers that I was genuinely frightened and didn't know these people at all. This made Gabriel's eyes widen. Honestly, I thought they were going to pop out of the back of his head, and he looked like a crazy person trying to convince the officers that he knew me. One of the officers remarked how sick and twisted it was to break into someone's house just to engage in such indecent activities. They warned Gabriel and the lady that they should consider themselves lucky if I chose not to sue them for their actions. Gabriel, his eyes wide with panic, attempted to apologize to me, claiming he never meant for any of this to happen, but I maintained my charade, insisting I had no idea of who he was. Which wasn't a complete lie, because clearly I didn't know he could be this cruel to me. The cops proceeded with their arrest and transported them to the police station. The following days and weeks were tumultuous, and our marriage was finally dead. Maybe it had been dead all along, but we had finally acknowledged that there was no turning back from this. He cheated on me, and I put him in jail. I think we were even. We finally decided to get a divorce, and as time went on, I confirmed that the lady Gabriel had been involved with was indeed Daya, his platonic work wife. Both of them faced severe consequences. They were not only confronted with the end of their respective marriages, but also lost their jobs. Revenge had never felt so satisfying, and even though my heart still ached from the betrayal, I knew I had taken a stand for myself. Hey there, folks. I'm Edith, 35, female, and I've been enjoying you guys' stories, and I thought it was time I shared mine. Buckle up because you're going to be in for a doozy. Before I get into it, though, I've been binge watching all these juicy story times on this channel, and then I decided that it's my turn to spill the tea. Let me take you back to the days when I was just a wide-eyed teenager with a dream. No, not the become a girl boss and conquer the world dream. No offense to those living that life. My dream was to be a mom surrounded by a big, happy family. Yeah, call me old-fashioned, but that was what I wanted with all my heart. I worked my tail off in orphanages since my teens, soaking in those motherly vibes. A lot of the caregivers in the orphanages would tell me that I had motherly instincts and that I was a natural when it came to taking care of and handling 7 to 8 kids at a time. I was even considered the mother of the friend group because I was always taking care of everyone. That was just who I was. And then college happened. I was majoring in social studies with a minor in child development. I was well on my way to making sure I could be the best mom I could be. Then I met Morton, the dude studying literature like he was trying to make Shakespeare shake in his boots. We fell in love and life was all sunshine and rainbows. Our families clicked like Legos, envisioning a beautiful, blissful future for us. Morton, being the romantic sap he was, popped the question through a poem, and I, of course, said yes. Now, here's where my life took a turn I never saw coming. Coming from a traditional background, I decided to save myself for marriage, if you catch my drift. With that being said, Morton and I decided not to move in together until we were actually married so as not to get tempted. So we had never lived with each other, meaning I never knew what kind of housemate, partner Morton would be like. So the day finally came and Morton and I said our I do's. The moment was pure magic, like a scene out of rom-com, but oh boy, when we moved in together after tying the knot, the honeymoon phase crashed and burned faster than a paper plane in a storm. Turns out Morton wasn't the knight in shining armor I thought he was. Okay, grab a bag of popcorn because this drama train is just getting started. So picture this. Morton, my literature-loving romantic and sweet husband, turned out to be a complete pig. I mean, he was a total slob, you guys. I'm talking next level mess like a tornado hit our living room daily. Dirty laundry and dishes everywhere, and the place had this musk that just wouldn't go away. Now, when I tried to address this, Morton pulled out the classic troubled artist card. According to him, the chaos fueled his creative genius. Yeah, right. I'd call him out on it, and let me tell you, those arguments were like a rock concert without the music, loud and chaotic. Morton, we need to talk. Oh, what's up, Edith? It's about this mess, Morton. I can't keep cleaning up after you. It's like living in a garbage dump. Come on, Edith, it's not that bad. Not that bad? I can barely see the floor sometimes. You know I'm a creative soul. This chaos fuels my artistic brilliance. Artistic brilliance? Morton, we're not living in a bohemian fantasy. We're adults. And this place is a disaster. You just don't understand, Edith. This is how I work. You can't expect me to conform to your idea of an OCD-fueled pristine life. I'm not asking for Buckingham Palace, Morton. Just some basic considerations. I mean, seriously. It's like a pigsty in here. It's embarrassing. I can't bring my friends over or host anything. This is my home too. You think you can understand what's going on in my mind? You wouldn't get it, Edith. I'm dealing with depression and my creative process is my therapy. Morton, I get it, I really do, but it doesn't excuse you from being a partner in this marriage. We both have to compromise and make an effort. Compromise? You're asking me to compromise my art, my sanity? You can't possibly comprehend the struggle I'm going through. Morton, I want to support you, but you need to meet me halfway. This can't be a one-way street. Maybe you should have just thought about that before marrying an artist, Edith. I didn't sign up for a messy house and a neglectful husband. We need to figure this out together. Well, figure it out, Edith, because this is who I am. And it wasn't just the clutter. Morton had this knack for being a selfish lover. Intimacy felt more like a chore because, surprise, surprise, he never bothered to consider my needs. You know, the basics of any healthy relationship. Now imagine dealing with all this nonsense within the first 6 months of marriage. I was already questioning my life choices, but divorce? Nah. That seemed like the nuclear option, especially so soon. What would my parents think? I couldn't bring myself to even complain to people because this wasn't supposed to happen. And not to me, at least. I was supposed to marry my beautiful husband, live in my beautiful home, and birth beautiful babies. That was the plan. So there I was, stuck in the mess, pun intended, and just not knowing what to do. A whole year had slipped through my fingers, and the resentment within me had grown like an unwelcome guest outstaying its welcome. Morton's dream of becoming the next literary sensation wasn't really panning out as we'd hoped, and I found myself shouldering the burden of our household funds. His excuse? Great art takes time. I didn't doubt his talent, but practicality couldn't be ignored when the bills were knocking at our door. I wanted him to chase his dreams, but we needed stability first. After countless debates, more like arguments, he reluctantly agreed to take a job as a university lecturer. The complaints that followed were as relentless as ever, and the house, already a battlefield, became a war zone. His excuse shifted from creative chaos to exhaustion from work. I countered, reminding him that I too was exhausted, working to keep our lives afloat. Our clashes became a daily routine, a toxic dance of frustration and unmet expectations. Then came that awful day when Morton treated me like the dirt under his shoe. Morton, I need you to pull your weight around here. I'm exhausted from working and dealing with the house. It's not fair that I'm doing everything. Why can't you see how unhappy I am? Edith, you know how important my writing is to me. The job is just a means to an end. Well, the bills don't pay themselves. I'm tired too, you know. Why are you complaining? You love working with kids, so why the hell are you tired? Besides, it's not like it's a real job. Excuse me? Just because I enjoy my job doesn't mean it's not real. I work hard, Morton. I work hard for us. Maybe you should stick to your traditional values and learn to be a quiet, supportive wife. Your constant nagging is getting old. You say you're sick of my crap? Well, I'm sick of yours, Edith. That stung right there. I mean, could you imagine? I was so pissed I didn't want to say something I'd regret later. So I just went straight to bed. Have you ever gone to bed with your face in a permanent scowl? I woke up feeling like my forehead was too tight from all the frowning I was doing. This wasn't what I signed up for, and at that moment, there and then, I told myself that I would go through with a divorce this time for sure. I'd had enough of the constant struggles in our marriage, and it was time to spill the beans. The next morning, still fuming, I decided to lay it all out for Morton. I wanted a divorce. For the first time in ages, I saw panic in his eyes. He started pleading and sobbing, blubbering like a fool, going on and on about how he needed me in his life. It was heartbreaking at the time, but I had to be strong to stand my ground. I told him straight up I couldn't keep taking care of him like he was a baby. I told him that I wanted a husband, not a wimp, and that he needed to get his act together if he ever wanted me to have a baby with him. Morton went into desperation mode, promising to work his butt off writing to bring in some stability. He painted this rosy future where he'd hit the big time and I could quit my job to focus on building the family we'd always dreamed of. I was torn, but I decided to give our messed up relationship another shot. Fast forward 2 years and Morton's writing career did a complete 180. He became a big shot author, landing sweet book deals and getting compared to Stephen King. We were moving up in the world and I was genuinely happy for him. But then, as we settled into our upgraded life, I brought up the idea of actively trying for a baby. Since things were better in the house, we could afford a maid who could help out with the mess that Morton was still making. And we weren't arguing as often because I got to be a housewife like I wanted. I was all excited about the prospect of starting a family. To my surprise, Morton's attitude took a nosedive. Suddenly, he wasn't keen on the whole baby-making idea. When I asked what the deal was, he spilled the beans. He didn't want a baby because he thought I might not be able to support him like I used to. He was afraid that without my support during the drafting process of his upcoming books, he might not hit the same level of success. Babe, I need you. You saw all the good things I did when you're right there by my side. It's true, you all. Part of the reason for Morton's newfound success was, drumroll please, me. That's right, you guys, I was the driving motivation for those horror sci-fi he was putting out. After I decided to give him another chance, I felt like I had to step up as a partner as well, because obviously it takes two to tango. I was the one who would stay up with him, acting as his sounding board and adding to his ideas. I was the one who would read his drafts and give him constructive criticism, and most of all, I was the one always encouraging him, praising him for all the hard work he was putting in. Someone needs to nominate me for Wife of the Year at this point. Anywho, to cut a long story short, I was there through the thick of it. I saw it all, the good, the bad, the ugly. I saw how someone so broken can come out of their own ashes, rising like a phoenix and producing great pieces of art. It was beautiful to witness in the end, I'm not going to lie. So I didn't immediately note what Morton said as a red flag because I thought he was just a bit scared of losing the person who helped him through all of that. Oh, baby, trust me, I get it. But I can assure you I'm still here. I'll still support you and help you like I always have. That's never going to change. You're just getting that thing the authors get. What's it called? Second book syndrome? Right. Second book syndrome. You're psyching yourself out because you think you won't perform as well as the first book. But babe, I've been inside that mind and let me tell you, it's brilliant. I can't wait for what you have in store. Thanks, babe. We're invincible. Don't you forget that. We can have this family and the success from your writing and anything else we want because we can do anything. But I could still see that my husband wasn't happy. He just mumbled another thanks and went to the kitchen to get some cookies. I didn't know what to do except my best, and that's what I did. Years dragged on and Morton and I were still playing the baby-making game. But nothing was happening. I was surprised because I would often get my fertility checked and I would tell Morton to do the same. I would want us to go together, but he was always somehow busy, so I told him that he needed to get his fertility checked so that we could help our chances. We would both come back fine with good levels of fertility, so I was wondering why I wasn't getting pregnant. This was making it hard on me, I'm not going to lie, because every year I celebrated my birthday, I was reminded that I was getting older, and soon enough I wouldn't be able to have kids. Morton kept telling me that when the time was right, it would happen, but it wasn't doing much to soothe my worries. Time was ticking away and I could feel the pressure mounting. On top of that, Morton's writing career hit a slump. He was losing motivation and he was taking his sweet time producing a new book. But because he had a deadline, he ended up churning out a half-assed excuse for creativity. As you can imagine, this new book didn't live up to the first one, and we were extremely disappointed. This sent Morton into a very dark place, drowning in depression. Once again, I found myself picking up the pieces and being the supportive partner, juggling his crap and mine at the same time, and let me tell you, it wasn't easy. Luckily, the first book's success meant we could still manage comfortably on royalties, at least for a while. But as finances tightened, we had to let go of the maids, so I'm pretty sure you know what that meant. Now I was stuck in a massive, messy house, and it felt like I was back to square one, but with more surface area to clean. Frustration bubbled up, and I confronted Morton yet again for the billionth time, asking him what his deal was. I had held up my end of the bargain, cooking, cleaning, and being his rock. But he wasn't pulling his weight. It felt like I was dating some kind of energy vampire or a zombie. He would just drain and take, and it was so tiring. Resentment crept back in, and to make matters worse, my biological clock was ticking loud and clear. At 29, I was dying to start the family I always wanted, but Morton kept dishing out the same excuses. He promised his mojo would return, and now wasn't the right time for a kid because he needed my support more than ever. I was exhausted, and I didn't want to be with him anymore. The problem was, with no job and a considerable gap in my work history, it felt impossible to leave. I was trapped in a cycle of frustration and exhaustion, desperately wanting to break free, but feeling tied to a man who wasn't even really a man at this point, just a sad sack of potatoes. 5 years rolled by, and there I was, 34 years old, and feeling like my life force had been sucked out by Morton's perpetual taking. Thankfully, a glimmer of hope appeared when a publicist reached out to Morton, offering a chance to revive his career with a memoir. Everyone wanted to hear the sad, sappy story of the failing artist, so it seemed like it was worth a shot. At first he resisted, but with my encouragement, he dove in, claiming he got his groove back. This memoir, or self-help book, as he called it, was supposed to change our lives for good. He promised me that. I was thrilled to see the old Morton resurface, and for a while, everything seemed promising. The book was written, published, and became a success, though not as massive as his first, but a success nonetheless. We were riding high on the wave of accomplishment, and things seemed to be going back to normal, but then I stumbled upon something that made my skin crawl. This was abuse. I discovered that Morton had been taking dutasteride, a drug known to decrease sperm mobility. He had never told me about this, and I had found this in the depths of his crusted underwear drawer. Anger surged within me as I realized he'd been preventing us from conceiving this entire time. Words couldn't describe how angry I was, you all. It was a good thing he wasn't home, because if I'm being honest, I don't know what I would have done to him. Livid and unsure of how to handle it, I decided to get back at him in a way that would make him sweat. I swapped his pills with harmless sugar ones that wouldn't affect him. A couple more months went by, and we were still riding on the success of the book. I cannot tell you what possessed me to act so nonchalantly with him, knowing good and damn well that this man has been playing me for years, but I had news that would shatter him. We both came home one day excited to share our news. Little did Morton know my discovery would change the dynamics of our relationship once and for all. "Babe, you'll never guess what happened." "Oh my God, I have good news too, babe. But you first." "Okay, so you know how the book's doing really well? Jane says we might be able to do a book tour in the near future." "What? That's amazing." "That's not all, babe. It's going to be a global book tour." "What?" "We're going worldwide, baby." He picked me up and swung me around, and I told him to be careful and to put me down, and he asked me why, and I said, "Well, you know how we've been trying for a baby, and it hasn't been working?" "Oh, right, babe. I'm so sorry that we haven't been able to." Well, I'm pregnant. Morton's face fell. He looked like he saw a demon, a ghost, his grandma, the scariest thing imaginable. What's the matter, babe? Aren't you excited for this? Yeah, I am. I'm just so shocked, you know. We've been trying for years. Crazy how we've been trying for years and now all of a sudden I'm pregnant. Imagine that. Morton awkwardly laughed and said that he had to take a shower because he had a long day. I let him do that, and I was laughing to myself because I had the upper hand in all of this. He must have thought he was going crazy, thinking he had a foolproof plan, but it was me laughing in the end. Several months flew by, and there I was, undeniably pregnant. Everyone around me was supportive except for Morton. With each passing month and each new fruit I compared the baby's size to, Morton seemed to grow more distant. He claimed he needed to focus on his work and the upcoming world tour. It was surprising considering he was the one afraid I wouldn't have time for him anymore. But now the roles were reversed. I didn't feel bad for swapping out those pills. The least that man could do was give me one child after everything I'd been through. As the months progressed, Morton showed less and less support. When I was 7 months pregnant, he dropped the bomb. He had to go on a world tour lasting 9 months. What the hell are you talking about? It's happening, baby. I'm going on tour and I leave tomorrow. I was shocked and angry. The baby was practically crowning and he wanted to go on a world tour? Not on my watch. When I talked to Jane, the publicist, she mentioned that the tour wasn't supposed to happen for another year. Ever since she found out about the pregnancy, she pushed it back so we could focus on our family, which was very sweet of her. I explained this to Morton, clearly asking for some information to fill in the gaps, and that's when Morton casually said, I told Jane to put the world tour back on the original scheduling. What? Are you forgetting that you have a child on the way? This idiot then told me that he needed to ride his wave of success ASAP, or he would flop again. His words. I told him I needed him for the birth and to help take care of the baby for the first few months, and that's always the hardest part. But Morton wouldn't budge. His flight was in the morning, and there was nothing I could do to stop him. 9 months had passed, and Morton was set to come back from his world tour. During that time, I had given birth to a beautiful baby girl, and I was taking care of her by myself. Having my baby with me brought immense joy. It made all those years of suffering with that idiot worth it, because without those years, I never would have gotten the chance to meet my beautiful angel. Even though I was so happy, I couldn't shake off the anger towards Morton for all the crap he put me through. I kept tabs on Morton, resentfully watching his interviews. In one interview, someone asked him about his feelings about becoming a father. Let me tell you, Morton acted like he was the best father in the world. He claimed he loved that baby to death, gushing about her. It made me want to vomit. Clearly, I had married a psychopath. It was a shame it took me this long to realize it. This was the straw, you guys, the straw that broke the camel's back. I refused to give him any information about the baby, not that he asked about it anyway. His little stunt with those pills and not choosing to be present for the birth and life of our child had pushed me over the edge. I decided to get divorce papers and talk to a lawyer about suing Morton for intentionally withholding information about the pills. I saw it as a form of abuse, and screw anyone who says or thinks otherwise. We were well into the process of getting everything sorted when Morton came home after his world tour. I prepared for his return by ensuring that our daughter was with her grandmother so he wouldn't even get the chance to see her. When Morton arrived, the first thing he said was, "Where's my daughter? Where is she?" "Why, so you can exploit her for money and views?" "Edith, please, I'm not in the mood for this." "Then I'm really going to bust your bubble because you'll never get to see her face." "Oh yeah? Let's see how well that holds up in court." "Why not? That's when I threw the divorce papers in his face. Morton was utterly shocked when that happened. As he started reading them, his eyes widened, especially when he reached the clause about him hiding the pills. In disbelief, he muttered, "How did you know about the pills?" I couldn't help but laugh, telling him he was an idiot if he thought that I'd never find out. Then I really let him have it, laying out all the crap he had put me through since the beginning, detailing everything and how I'd been there for him, but all he did was make me depressed. Morton tried to defend himself, claiming he was a victim and took those pills because he wasn't ready to become a father. "No, it was because you weren't ready to become a man. I should have known better. I was stupid for ever being with a man like you." I said a lot of things. I called him a crazy, lazy, selfish a-hole. Morton, feeling the pressure, threatened to sue for full custody, saying he was stacked up now and could convince any judge or lawyer to consider him over me. But I dropped the bomb that I had been recording the entire conversation from that moment he walked in. I had his confession, and it would be my trump card in court. "You're crazy, you know that? Where is it?" "It's not even with me right now. It's being streamed to my lawyer right now, and there's nothing you can do about it." I warned him that if he wanted to salvage any bit of his career, he would give me everything I wanted, or I'd release the recording to the public, ruining him completely. Morton broke down sobbing, but I told him to shut the hell up and ensure he had my money prepared. I demanded full custody of my baby, hefty child support, substantial alimony, the house he bought, and a big fat check for all the emotional damage he caused me. Morton could only sit there helpless as I planned to drain him dry the same way he had done to me. To this day, Morton hasn't seen his baby's face, and it will be a cold day in hell before he ever will. Hey folks, Agnes here, 37, female, ready to spill the tea on my crazy life. So imagine this: a girl growing up surrounded by trapeze artists, fire eaters, and clowns. That was me, Agnes, the unintentional circus sensation. My adopted circus family didn't have much choice but to throw me into the limelight when they discovered I could bend in ways that would make a pretzel jealous. Flexibility had its perks, I guess. Life in the circus ain't no walk in the park, let me tell you. We were a bunch of misfits surviving in a dying industry. Gigs were as unpredictable as the weather, and when the crowds didn't show up, desperation set in. That's when we turned to the gray areas of legality to make sure we had enough cash to keep going. Now, I never knew my birth parents. I was just a toddler when the circus adopted me. I suppose they saw my potential and thought, hey, we can make some money off this kid. Not the most glamorous start to life, but hey, at least I got some cool circus skills out of it. But being the circus oddity came at a cost. No school dances, no high school crushes, just a relentless grind of circus life. At 16, I couldn't take it anymore. I wanted out. I wanted a taste of normalcy. So I hatched a plan to escape. But oh boy, my circus family wasn't having it. They caught wind of my little plot, and from that day forward, it was like living in a circus-themed prison. Tighter schedules, harsher rules. They wanted to squeeze every last drop of profit out of me. And let me tell you, the means they used to keep the money flowing weren't exactly honorable, as I mentioned before. Robberies, sketchy deals, selling unprescribed Adderall to desperate souls. Yeah, we did it all. I started feeling more like a cash cow than a human being. Enough was enough. The resentment grew, and I dreamt of a life beyond the big top. I wanted to break free from the chains of the circus, taste freedom, and pursue dreams that didn't involve juggling or walking a tightrope. But it seemed impossible, and I was growing more and more desperate as the years went by. So 4 years flew by, and my circus family had taken a really dark turn. We went from being quirky performers to full-on hardcore criminals. drugs, shady deals, and a whole lot of messed up chaos. It was a living nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I'd seen things that would give you chills, and I was done living that cruel, tough life. My circus family wasn't a family anymore. They were just a bunch of messed up drug lords. I had to get out, and I needed a plan. Lucky for me, I had one true friend in that chaotic mess. Let's call him Jack. Jack and I hatched a plan to escape the circus nightmare, and as fate would have it, when the heat was on and my family was about to catch me escaping again, Jack took the fall for both of us. Brave soul. I promised Jack that I'd find a way to contact him once I was free. I was determined to bring him into the light and away from the circus's twisted grip. 2 years later, I finally made a life for myself. I landed a waitress gig and snagged a small, dingy apartment. It wasn't much, but it was freedom, and that's all I needed. I found Jack on Facebook, but communication was tricky, as you can imagine. The circus drug lord ringleader was keeping a close eye on him, making regular contact near impossible. We'd exchange a few words once a month, and every time I'd reassure Jack that things would work out for us in the end. All right, buckle up, folks, because the roller coaster continues. So there I was, settling into my new life in Connecticut, thinking I could finally catch a break from the circus nightmare. But life had other plans. One day I decided to check on Jack like I would usually do. But what I saw made my heart drop. A terrifying text from Jack's account explained that the other family members had found his secret social media profile. Panic mode initiated. They threatened me, said that they were loaded now from all the illegal activity and ready to hunt me down for revenge. I pleaded and swore I wouldn't spill their secrets to the authorities, but they weren't buying it. Loose ends needed tying up, and I was on their list. Now imagine living with the constant fear that you're being watched. I changed my social media and my identity, but somehow those circus creeps always found a way to reach me. Every year or so, an ominous message with a clown emoji would pop up. I found you. It was like a never-ending horror show, and I didn't know what to do. You might be wondering why I didn't run to the police. Fear. Pure, unadulterated fear. I'd been involved in their illegal activities, and although I was forced and coerced into it, I was terrified of getting into trouble myself. So I kept moving, changing places, hoping to outrun the ghosts of my past. For a while, Connecticut seemed like a safe haven, thank God. I got odd jobs and gardener gigs, just trying to make ends meet. That's when I met Clinton, a nice guy who hired me for various odd jobs around his place. Clinton and I hit it off. He would always laugh at my jokes, and he found it cool that I had a background in the circus. Eventually we started dating. Things felt normal, happy even. For a while, I could almost forget the circus nightmare that kept lurking in the shadows. Clinton and I were on fire. Every day he'd tell me he loved me, and I was falling head over heels for the guy. Love was in the air, and it wasn't long before we decided to throw a shotgun wedding. Yep, we were so crazy about each other that we just couldn't wait. We didn't have a big fancy ceremony or anything, just a couple of lovebirds saying their vows in a little chapel. It was simple, sweet, and felt like a dream compared to the circus drug-fueled nightmare I'd been through. I thought maybe, just maybe, life was finally cutting me some slack. Clinton and I settled into our married life, blissfully in love and building a future together. For a moment, I almost forgot about the shadows of the past. Little did I know the circus wasn't done with me just yet. Life's got a funny way of keeping you on your toes, and my toes were about to tap into another twist in this wild tale. You're probably wondering at this point if I spilled the beans to Clinton about my wild circus days. Nope, not a chance. I figured it's best to keep that whole bag of crazy locked up tight. When we'd shoot the breeze about our families, I'd just toss out the orphan bomb, Mentioned I didn't really have a clue if there were any other relatives lurking around. I mean, It wasn't a complete lie, so I tried not to feel too bad about it. Clinton didn't dig too deep, thinking my life was already sad enough without a proper family tree. And honestly, I was cool with that. Happy in the now, building a new life with Clinton. I didn't want my past to rain on our parade. So now it's been a year into the wedded bliss. I was doing the laundry, minding my own business as one does. As I'm sorting through the clothes, what do I stumble upon? A pair of panties that sure as heck weren't mine. I went full-blown ballistic. I mean, who wouldn't? I stormed up to Clinton, waving those mystery undies like a battle flag. He's got this deer-in-the-headlights look, stammering like a kid caught with their hands in the cookie jar. And I'm standing there demanding answers, thinking, is this guy for real? Trust me, I was ready to unleash the circus fury on him. Clinton, care to explain these panties I found in the laundry? They sure as shit ain't mine. What? Agnes, I swear, I don't know how they got there. Maybe they got mixed up at the laundromat or something. Oh, save it, Clint. I ain't buying that load of crap. Who's the other woman, huh? Spit it out. Agnes, I'm not cheating on you. I love you. Those panties are probably just a mix-up. Mix-up? You think I'm stupid? I've been through enough crap in my life to spot a liar, and you're lying through your teeth. Agnes, I swear on everything I... Spare me, Clint. You're just like the rest of them, a big fat liar. You're overreacting, Agnes. Overreacting? I've been through literal hell. And now this. I won't be played for a fool. You're being irrational. Just calm down and listen. Calm down? You've got some nerve, Clinton. You cheat on me and you have the gall to tell me to calm down? And so the shouting match went on, each word cutting deeper than the last. The trust we had built seemed to turn to dust at that moment. When I looked at him that day, it was like I was looking at a stranger. Yeah, so things got worse, if you can believe it. Clinton just kept on cheating and I kept on letting it happen. It's like I was stuck in this messed up loop, you know. Every time I caught him, it was a new low. Lipstick on his collar, smelling like some other woman's perfume. He even had the nerve to call me by someone else's name. And sometimes he'd straight up admit it. And it wasn't like he was trying to hide it anymore. No, sir. He'd almost show it off, flaunting his affairs like some twisted game. When I'd lose it, he'd just throw it back at me. Clinton, seriously, why do you treat me like crap? What's your deal? You think I'm stupid? Honestly? Yeah. What? You heard me. I think you're stupid. Why are you still here if you hate me so much? Why are you still here if you don't like me enjoying myself? Are you high or something? It's because I love you. No, I don't think so. I think it's because you're obsessed with me. What? Admit it. You need me, babe. You're obsessed with me. Obsessed? You're out of your mind. Why would anyone be obsessed with a cheating jerk like you? Look around, Agnes. You got nothing without me. Now, why don't you just leave? I don't know, okay? But that doesn't mean I need you. Sure. Admit it, Agnes. You're hooked on me. You can't resist. No, I'm not. I just thought we could have a decent life together. Decent life with you? Come on, Agnes. You know you can't do any better. Maybe I can't. That's right. You're stuck with me and you know it. I didn't really know what to say after that. I mean, sure, I was furious, but this twisted fear of being alone kept me hanging on. I'd rather put up with his crap than face the ghosts of my past, you know? After a while of this crap, I stopped fighting it. I stopped questioning him. It was like I became numb to it all. More years rolled by and Clinton just kept at it. There were times when I'd catch him right in our bed with another woman and I felt like I couldn't even fight back. I was stuck, drowning in this mess I couldn't escape. It's crazy how fear can make you do things you never thought you would. So there I was, turning 36, thinking maybe things would take a turn for the better. Boy, was I wrong. Life decided to throw me another curveball. Clinton continued his cheating antics. It was almost comical at this point. Lipstick on his collar, late night calls, the whole shebang. I barely flinched anymore. It's funny how you can get used to your own personal hell. Nights that used to be filled with silent sobs now felt eerily quiet. No more tears. It's like my soul has run out of water. But this is where things took a turn. You remember that toxic circus family I mentioned earlier? Yeah. Turns out they found me. Got a nice little DM on my Instagram saying, "Nice try," when they figured out I was going by a different name and decided to drop me a threatening note. I felt a chill run down my spine. How the heck did they find me again? I changed my name, my location, everything. It felt like they had eyes everywhere, and suddenly all the old fears and nightmares came rushing back. I tried to shake it off and focus on my life with Clinton, or whatever was left of it, but it was like trying to ignore a storm that was about to wreck everything. I couldn't escape the feeling that my past was catching up, and it was bringing a world of trouble with it. Turns out, they weren't too worried about chasing me down all these years because they were too busy swimming in their pool of ill-gotten gains. But now the fuzz was about to rain on their parade. They texted me their threats, trying to squeeze me like an old rag. The grand plan? They wanted to wire their dirty money into my account, making me the fall guy when the law came knocking. Real classy, right? They weren't asking, they were demanding. "Give us your bank details, Agnes," they sneered, thinking they had me cornered. Threats echoed through the phone, promises of ruining my life if I dared to defy them. They even had the audacity to tell me I should be grateful they left me alone all these years and that taking the fall for all their crap was the least I could do since I abandoned them. I begged and pleaded, but they were heartless, and that's when the light bulb flickered in my head. A twisted plan was forming. "Sure, wire the money," I texted back. I tossed my bank details their way like a juicy bone to a pack of wolves. They boasted about sending $500,000 anonymously, thinking they were the puppet masters pulling the strings. Little did they know I was about to turn the tables and make their puppet show a comedy of errors. Let the circus games begin. The next day, I approached Clinton with a carefully crafted email from none other than yours truly, but he didn't know that. I told him that I did indeed have some long-lost relatives tucked away in a European royal family. I said that the patriarch of this imaginary clan had kicked the bucket, and now yours truly was set to inherit a tidy sum. I laid it on thick, pulling out all the stops. The waterworks were in full swing as I poured my heart out to Clinton. He sat there staring at the email like it held the secrets of the universe. I made sure to sprinkle just the right amount of drama, making my tale of royal connections sound so convincing that he'd think Shakespeare himself penned it. As he read and reread the email, I kept up the act. Big eyes, sniffles, and the occasional quiver in my voice, I could practically see the dollar signs dancing in his eyes as he envisioned the grand life we were about to lead, thanks to my fictional royal lineage. Oh, the lengths I'd go to escape this circus of a life. "Wait, what? Are you serious? This can't be real." "You better believe it, honey. We're going to be loaded." "How's this even possible?" "Yeah, I know, it's crazy. I never thought I had any family left out there, but now apparently we're looking at a whole new life. A better life." "A better life is an understatement, babe. We're going to be loaded." "Yeah, you're right. The amount of money they sent me is crazy. I'm talking in the hundreds of thousands over here." That's a game changer, Agnes. Are you sure this is real? Have you ever received the money? How much is your bank account balance after all this inheritance talk?" Then I pulled up my phone to show him my bank account details, and I swear he was on the verge of passing out. But he saw the proof right there, and let me tell you, he just couldn't contain himself. Clinton got all giddy with his plans. He wanted to be the money man, saying he had the education for it. So it was best if he held on to the money. But I could see that sneaky look in his eyes. I figured he had some shady moves in mind, but I gave him my bank details anyway. The next day, I woke up to find divorce papers on my bedside table, along with this letter from Clinton. He spilled the beans about grabbing the whole $500,000 and proudly announced he was off to shack up with his supposedly better girlfriend. According to him, I was dumb for trusting him with the cash, and he made it clear we'd never see each other again and that he played me. He said that he was expecting me to be out of his house by sundown and to leave the keys on the front porch so that he could get his things and move on with his life too. But I was the one who was going to get the last laugh. In fact, that's exactly what I did. I laughed and I laughed and I laughed some more, realizing that this was exactly what I wanted to happen. This was what I was waiting for. I wanted Clinton to take the fall for that dirty circus money. This was going to be my payback for all those years of humiliating me and cheating on me. So after he made his grand exit with the cash, I couldn't stick around. They could trace it back to me, no doubt. But packing up my life at a moment's notice was one skill the circus drilled into me. So in a flash, I got rid of any trace that I'd been living there, tossed my clothes, lost my IDs, even burned some evidence of me ever being in that house. I even burned the divorce papers. I didn't even want people to know that Clinton and I had any sort of association, and I know that getting rid of all that evidence would make him go crazy trying to link things back to me once he would get caught. That was it. No looking back. I hit the road, running away from the life I'd been leading for the past decade. I'm not going to lie. I was scared that my plan wouldn't work. What with Clinton obviously trying to plead his innocence and then revealing that the money had actually belonged to a certain Agnes, who was his wife. But then I got some wonderful news not long after my little stunt. A few weeks later, I saw Clinton's face plastered on the front page of the local newspaper. He got arrested for fraud, all thanks to that money in his account. Safe to say, I was finally in the clear. I couldn't resist digging into the whole Clinton debacle. The story in the newspapers was like a script for a bad sitcom, and I needed to know all the juicy details. Turns out the police thought Clinton was a total nut job. I mean, who screams and yells about his wife being the mastermind behind some sketchy $500,000 inheritance? But the cops weren't buying into his act. No one inherits that kind of cash out of the blue. Even his string of girlfriends didn't help his case. They were clueless about me, thinking it was just another one of his wild stories to escape the clutches of accountability. Needless to say, his side chicks weren't too happy to find out that they weren't the only ones of his lovers, so they had no trouble cutting ties with him and making him seem like Jack the Ripper in the eyes of the law because of his deceit. When the police raided his place, they found no trace of any Agnes living there. Every move Clinton made to prove his innocence just made him look even more guilty. The newspapers were having a field day with headlines like "Mad Men's Imaginary Heiress" and "Delusional Husband on the Loose." They even mentioned that he was going for psych evaluations tagged as clearly delusional and a potential threat to society. Now that brought a smile to my face. I couldn't help but laugh at the sheer absurdity of it all. Maybe justice was finally catching up with him. There were quotes from Clinton in the newspapers saying things like, "Agnes, I don't know what you've done, but I'm going to find you and I'm going to get you." It sounded more like a bad movie line than an actual threat. Honestly, it was nowhere near as threatening or scary as the text I used to get from my crazy circus family. Needless to say, I was used to being threatened by people with actual power, mind you. So I wasn't scared about what stupid old Clinton would try and do to me. Besides, he was the one stuck in a jail cell, so I think I'll be fine. I decided it was time to pull off another disappearing act, change my identity, move somewhere where no one knew me, and try to live out the rest of my days without being watched or hounded by the ghosts of my past. Again, I was glad. I got the last laugh. Finally, I had the revenge I deserved after being cheated on for so long. I couldn't get revenge on my circus family, but at least I could teach that cheating scumbag a lesson. The more Clinton talked about his wife being from the circus and not being a usual member of society made him sound more and more crazier. Right now, I'm living in a different city under a different name, working odd jobs, glad to be free of him. And here's to hoping my circus family won't show up anytime soon. I just had to share my story because it was something that I never thought would happen to me, and I just had to say it. Tell it to anyone just so I could relieve some of this pressure. Anyways, it must suck to be Clinton right now, thinking that he could play me by stealing all my money. Well, I guess that's just what happens when you're a greedy bastard and you want more than what you already have. Hey folks, I'm Stephanie, 23, female. Today I've got a story that still sends shivers down my spine when I think about it. The kind that makes you reevaluate your entire life? Yeah, that's what we're getting into here. For parts of my life that I can remember, I would always say that I had a pretty normal family life. Things were great apart from the divorce between my parents. We were well fed, we were taken care of, and honestly, I couldn't complain too much. But looking back at it now and knowing what I know now, I should have seen the warning signs sooner. Although things were good, I could say it was a bit hectic, living 2 different lives in 2 different countries because of the divorce. My brother, Emil, 27, male, bounced between Germany and the good old US of A, and Dad lived in the States and Mom held it down in Germany. The turning point came when Mom got seriously sick. Life as we knew it was about to change forever. We had to pack our bags and head to the States full time. I was 14 at the time, Emil 18, and let's just say emotions were running high. Adapting to life in the US was a mixed bag for both of us. Me, I handled it okay, but Emil, not so much. He harbored this deep-seated hatred for Dad. Blamed him for the family falling apart, for Mom's illness, the whole shebang. Emil had this knack for weaving this narrative that painted Dad as the villain in our story. I'd hear him out and nod in agreement, not realizing the dangerous path this was leading us down. Steph, seriously? You've got to open your eyes. Dad's the reason Mom's sick and he's the reason we're stuck here in the States. Easy, Emil. Dad didn't make Mom sick. It's just life throwing us a curveball. But Mom will be all right. Don't worry. Curveball? More like he threw a grenade into our family. He left Mom alone in Germany while he lived it up here. Selfish Steph. Completely selfish. Maybe if he sent more money, Mom wouldn't have gotten so sick. Look, I get you're upset, but let's not exaggerate. Dad has his reasons. You know how young they were when they had you. I guess they just weren't compatible. Mom knew that. Reasons? What reasons? He's just a heartless jerk. You're too blind by him to see it. I'm not blinded, Emil. I just don't want to play the blame game. It won't change anything. You're just letting him off the hook. He ruined everything. Maybe we can talk about this later. I don't want to fight. Whatever, Steph. Just don't act like he's some saint. You'll see. Our parents, despite loving us deeply, had drastically different outlooks on life. Dad, a staunch atheist, believed only in science, while Mom embraced spirituality with tarot readings and psychic practices. Their different views on religion and life choices played a pivotal role in their divorce. Marrying young, they couldn't reconcile their differences. Emil, closer to Mom, embraced her spiritual practices, diving into those rituals and beliefs. I, however, found myself in the middle, practicing yoga and meditation occasionally, but not fully immersing myself in Mom and Emil's spiritual world. Dad, practical and logical, clashed with Emil's spiritual practices, sparking frequent arguments. Emil, resentful of Dad for what he believed was the crushing of Mom's spirit, struggled to find common ground. Caught in the crossfire, I, just a kid, fought with the complexities of my family drama, torn between the 2 people I loved most. I hoped for a way to bring peace to our home. Little did I know these disagreements were mere precursors to a more significant storm looming on the horizon for our family. Emil's rebellion against Dad escalated, and like most 18-year-olds, he was pushing boundaries. But I'm not gonna lie, Emil was going off the rails. His late-night escapades, fueled by cheap booze and weed, only intensified the fights between him and Dad. It was a really tough time, and just shy of a year into our stay with Dad, Emil dropped a bombshell. He'd gotten some random girl pregnant. Dad had reached his breaking point. Furious, he kicked Emil out, insisting that if he wanted to act like an adult, he'd do it. He kicked him out without a second thought. I remember that night like it was yesterday. It was really hard on me because I wanted our family to stay together, not fall further apart. A year slipped by and Heidi, Emil's daughter, came into the world. Despite the crazy circumstances surrounding her birth, I made it a point to visit Emil, his girlfriend, and sweet Heidi as often as I could. I couldn't resist. She was the cutest baby I'd ever seen. And what's more, she was part of our family. And family meant a lot to me. Tragedy struck around the same time Heidi was born, though. Our mom, the spiritual force who had shaped Emil's beliefs and mine, passed away. The news hit us hard, and we swiftly flew to Germany to attend her funeral and bid her a final farewell. Emil was particularly crushed, as you can imagine. The burden of shame over not sharing the news about his daughter with our mom weighed heavily on him. He barely spoke to her in the past year because he was ashamed and embarrassed at his actions, and the regret was eating at him. Her passing fueled Emil's descent into a dangerous spiral of drugs and alcohol. Both Dad and I were extremely worried about this behavior, especially considering he was a father. The already strained relationship between Emil and Dad worsened, as you can imagine. Emil still held our father responsible for everything that had gone wrong in our mom's life. He even went as far as to blame him for her death. Their fights escalated, and there was even a point when Emil banned our dad from seeing Heidi. It was all so sad and crazy. As I turned 18, I decided it was time to leave Dad's house and venture out on my own. I aimed to carve a path for myself, pursuing a good degree and working part-time to support my endeavors. Life seemed to be on a positive trajectory for me. However, tragedy struck yet again when I turned 18. The news came like a punch to the gut. My dad had gotten into a car accident and was instantly killed. The news hit us like a sledgehammer. We were not doing okay. The death of our dad cast a shadow over both Emil and me. I was taken aback by how deeply Emil was affected by the loss, considering his strained relationship with our father. After the funeral, I approached Emil, sensing that there was more to his grief than met the eye. I asked if he wanted to talk about it, and that's when Emil broke down. Emil sat on the worn-out couch, his shoulders slumped and his eyes red from tears. I joined him, gently placing a hand on his back. "Hey, Em, you want to talk about it?" "I don't even know where to start, Steph. I'm just so angry, and I can't figure out why." "It's okay, Emil. You don't have to have all the answers right now. Just tell me what you're feeling." "I'm mad at Dad, Steph. I'm mad at him for everything. I don't even know why I'm crying. We had such a messed up relationship, and now he's gone." "It's okay to feel angry, Em. Grief is a complex thing. You're allowed to be upset, even if your relationship with Dad was difficult. The loss brings out all sorts of emotions." "I don't get it. We fought so much, and I thought I hated him, but now he's gone, and it feels like this huge weight on my chest." "Sometimes emotions are messy, Em. You're grieving, and it's okay to feel conflicted. It doesn't mean you loved him any less. I wish I could have figured things out with him before he died. I wish I could have told Mom about Heidi, about everything. It's tough, Em. But remember, you're not alone. We're family and we'll get through this together. And Dad, well, he's at peace now. I just didn't expect it to hurt this much. Grief doesn't follow a script, Em. Take the time you need, and whenever you're ready, we can figure out what comes next together. Thanks, Steph. I love you. Thanks for everything. For putting up with my crap. For being so strong, even though I'm supposed to be the one protecting you. Always, Em. We've got each other's backs. With both our parents gone, we found ourselves orphaned, trying to move past the years of turmoil that had haunted our lives. I continued to visit Emil and Heidi regularly, as they were the only family I had left. The journey was incredibly difficult for all of us, but we were determined to support each other and move forward. It had been 5 years since we lost our dad, and life had been going okay for the most part. I was grateful to have already been able to support myself. It sucked not having Mom or Dad around, but that's just the way life goes, you know. Now at 23, I found myself in the middle of a family celebration. Heidi, my niece, had just wrapped up her 9th birthday party. The house was filled with laughter, cake smears, and the joyous chaos of children. It was lovely. Wanting to lend a helping hand, I offered to help tidy up the house. Emil had to take his now fiancé for a pregnancy checkup, as they were expecting again. I figured it was the least I could do to help, considering he had his hands full. As I gathered plates and discarded wrapping paper, Heidi approached me, her eyes sparkling with a mixture of innocence and curiosity. She tugged at the sleeve of my shirt, pulling me aside from the cleanup. "Auntie Steph, when can I see my grandma?" I paused, caught off guard by the unexpected question. How on earth did she not know about my mom? Didn't Emil tell her? Unfortunately, sweetie, you didn't get a chance to meet your grandma. Now she's gone, and I'm so sorry you didn't get the chance to meet her, but I know that she would have loved you with all her heart." Heidi looked confused. "Well, Grandma told me that she could see me whenever I wanted to." "When did this happen?" "I had a dream last night, and Grandma visited me in my dream. She told me that she loved me and that she wanted me to visit her." I raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "What else did she tell you?" Heidi hesitated for a moment before speaking, as if carefully choosing her words. "She said we need to fix our family, Auntie Steph. She said there's something broken and we can make it right." I couldn't help but feel a chill run down my spine. Dreams were tricky things, but Heidi's words hung in the air. As much as I wanted to dismiss it as a child's imagination, the sincerity in her eyes made me pause. And considering my mother's witchy background, I thought that maybe there was some truth to what Heidi was saying. Emil returned later that evening, his fiancée by his side, the news of a smooth and healthy pregnancy painting smiles on their faces. I decided not to mention Heidi's dream. After all, dreams were just dreams, right? Perhaps Heidi just noticed our messed up family dynamic and saw one picture of her grandma and bam, conjured up a dream with no actual significance. Those types of things do happen. But as I stayed the night to hang out with Heidi, her words echoed in my mind. There was a part of me that wondered if Grandma, in some mysterious way, had left behind a message for us. Maybe it was time to address the lingering fractures in our family and in some way honor the memory of our parents. A couple of months went by. Life was operating as usual. I was washing the dishes one day when Emil had called me. "Hey, Steph, how are you doing?" "I'm good, bro. What about you?" "I'm well, thanks. Listen, I've got a big business meeting coming up and I need a huge favor." "No problem. What do you need?" "Well, it's this weekend and I need you to stay over and take care of Heidi. Mia is visiting family up north so that they can see her before she gives birth, and I can't reschedule this meeting. It's important." "Oh, no worries, Emil. I'd be happy to spend the weekend with Heidi. You know I love hanging out with her." "You're a lifesaver, Steph. I'll make sure everything's set up for you. Food's in the fridge and Heidi's bedtime is around 8. Can you make it?" "Absolutely. I'll be there. Just focus on your meeting and I'll take care of Heidi. Anything else I should know?" Nah, that's about it. Mia should be back Sunday evening, so it's just for the weekend. Thanks a million, Steph. No problem, Emil. We'll have a great time. Just knock 'em dead in that meeting of yours. Will do. Thanks again, Steph. You're the best. The weekend arrived, and so did I, at Emil's house with my duffel. Heidi, of course, started losing her mind when she saw me, knowing that her cool aunt was here and we'd have a blast. Emil left shortly after, giving me full reign of the house, and we got started on enjoying ourselves in the weekend. We played a bunch of games and even had a little dance party in the living room. It felt good to spend quality time with my niece after so long. Later on in the day, I decided to whip up some snacks for us. As I raided the kitchen for ingredients, I stumbled upon a set of strange-looking glass bottles. They were filled with liquids of different colors, each labeled with strange words that seemed like something out of a fantasy novel. Heidi walked into the kitchen and immediately noticed what I was holding. Before I could ask her, she quickly said, "Those belong to Dad, and he told me not to touch them, so you might get in trouble too." "Oh, please, that man can't do anything to me. Don't tell him I told you that." "But what are these?" Heidi said she didn't know. I found it odd, like stumbling upon a makeshift potion lab in the middle of suburbia. And that's when I remembered Emil's fascination with spirituality and mysticism. I hadn't heard him talk about it in ages, probably because he was knee-deep in his himbo finance bro phase. I figured he'd moved on from that spiritual chapter, so it was a tad bit surprising to see he was still invested. I dismissed it, focusing on the fun we were having. However, throughout the day, Heidi was acting weird, weirder than her usual goofy and silly self. I caught her scribbling strange symbols in her coloring books instead of coloring within the lines, and quietly chanting strange phrases under her breath. It was a bit weird, but considering I grew up with a woman who would do this loudly and proudly on the daily, I wasn't too alarmed. I chalked it up to Emil introducing her to some harmless spiritual practices like mantras and stuff. It was cute. Finally, I couldn't resist asking Heidi about it. We sat down, and I gently asked her if Dad had been teaching her about spirituality. With an eager nod, Heidi said yeah. I decided to let it be. After all, I was in no position to judge Emil's parenting choices as long as Heidi was safe and happy. As the day continued, I couldn't shake the feeling that something unusual was afoot. The vibe in the house had shifted, and a subtle tension hung in the air. Night fell, and after rustling up some mac and cheese, Heidi and I settled down to watch a movie. She must have been tired from all the excitement, because at some point during the film she dozed off. After some time I scooped her up and carried her to bed. Upon entering Heidi's room, though, I was hit with a foul stench. Honestly, it smelt like hell in there. I tried to pinpoint the source of the stench, but no dice. Eventually, with all my rustling, Heidi woke up and asked me what I was doing. "Sorry, babes, I've been trying to find where that smell is coming from." "What smell?" "You mean you can't smell that?" "Oh, that smell. I got used to it." Heidi casually mentioned that her room just smelled that way ever since her dad put something in her room a couple of weeks ago. My mind immediately raced with thoughts of what Emil might have stashed in there. The weird bottles from the kitchen flashed in my mind, and a strange sense of foreboding settled in. What had Emil been up to, and how did it involve Heidi's room smelling like a mixture of chaos and mystery? Little did I know, this was just the beginning of a night that would unravel more secrets than I bargained for. "Where is it coming from?" Heidi just pointed to her closet, which was tucked away in the corner of the room, and that's when I went towards it and opened it up. In disbelief, I headed straight for Heidi's closet and opened the door. There, tucked away in the back corner, was a white box. Heidi nervously mentioned that she wasn't allowed to open it, and that her dad just put it there for her protection. But the unsettling curiosity got the better of me, and no child should sleep in such awful conditions. I lifted the lid, and there it was, the most disgusting thing I've ever seen in my life. It was a grotesque scene of dead rats covered in guts and some unidentifiable black substance slowly decaying in the box. I almost threw up at the mere sight of it, let alone that horrible smell. The shock hit me like a ton of bricks, and I dropped the box like it was a live grenade. Panicking, I sternly told Heidi to get out of the room. She was naturally curious, wanting to see what was inside, but I insisted she leave immediately. I told her to get the keys and to wait in the car. I needed the moment to process this horror show. The air in the room felt heavy, and I struggled to catch my breath. I felt like I was getting a panic attack. This was beyond bizarre. It was straight out of a nightmare. What the hell, Emile? Overwhelmed and feeling like a ticking time bomb of panic, I managed to snap some pictures as evidence. The reality of the situation was sinking in, and I feared that whatever Emile had gotten involved in was far darker than I could have ever imagined. After the disturbing discovery in Heidi's room, we hastily left Emile's place and made our way to my apartment. Heidi, understandably curious and anxious, asked me questions about why we left home and what was wrong. I reassured her that I would explain everything soon and that we would be staying at my place for the night, or at least until Emile returned from his mysterious business trip. Once I made sure Heidi was occupied, I took a moment to call Emile. He groggily answered, clearly woken up by the abrupt phone call. Trying to keep my composure, I started to explain the horrifying scene in Heidi's room. And that's when Emile's response sent shivers down my spine. He coldly asserted that I had ruined everything. "What's up? Is everything okay?" "Emile, we need to talk. It's about Heidi. I found something in her room, and I'm extremely concerned." "What did you find?" "Cut the crap, Emile. I found a box full of dead rats, covered in some strange crap. What the hell is going on?" I have no idea." "Oh, really? Because she told me that you were the one who put it in her closet and told her not to touch it." "What the hell, Emile? What are you doing?" "You weren't supposed to find that. It's a ritual, Steph. A necessary one." "A ritual? Involving dead rats? Are you out of your mind? She's 9 years old, Emile. This is twisted." "You don't understand, Steph. Heidi has a connection to the spiritual realm. That dream she had months ago, the one where she saw Mom, it's a sign. I'm sure she told you about it." "Emile, this is child abuse. How could you do this to your own daughter?" "It's not like you'd understand. This is beyond your comprehension. Those rats were a conduit for positive energy, a shield against the negative forces that could harm Heidi." "You're delusional, Emile. You don't even know what you're doing. I also grew up with Mom, so let me remind you, we have never done that crap before. What you're doing is harmful, not protective. She's a child, not some experiment for your spiritual nonsense." "Typical. Mom would be so disappointed in you right now." "What are you talking about?" "You always sided with Dad, didn't you? You never understood my beliefs. This is for Heidi's own good." Unable to comprehend the depth of Emile's delusion, I abruptly cut the call. The realization hit me like a ton of bricks. My own brother had gone off the deep end, and Heidi was caught in the crossfire. Panic surged through me, and without hesitation I called the police, informing them that my brother had lost his mind and was putting his daughter in harm's way. I was furious. How could he possibly think that he was being a good father by subjecting his daughter to that dangerous crap for weeks? After telling the police everything, I hung up and called Emile back, telling him that I talked to the cops. He wasn't happy, of course, calling me a traitor and asking how I could do that to him. "I'm doing what's necessary to protect Heidi from whatever harm you think you're shielding her from. She's staying with me until this mess is sorted out." "Stephanie, please, you have to understand. I'm doing this for Heidi's sake." "I can't let you continue down this path, Emile. It's not healthy for Heidi, and it's certainly not healthy for you." A couple of days passed since the disturbing incident involving Emile's ritual, and the consequences were catching up with him. Emile had to cut short his work trip, returning home to face the fallout of his actions. The small community had caught wind of the disturbing events, and Emil found himself facing not just embarrassment, but serious legal consequences. I was obviously furious and disappointed with my brother, so I kept my distance from Emil. I couldn't believe what he had done, and I was only scared of what else he could have been doing. The news had spread like wildfire, and even people in the neighborhood were gossiping about the strange ritual involving dead rats. Emil, facing charges of child endangerment, was not only dealing with the legal repercussions, but also with Mia, his fiancée, who was furious and felt betrayed. Mia said she didn't know anything about this, and she was going to leave Emil, taking their kids with her. He kept trying to contact me, but I, however, wasn't ready to listen. I firmly believed that Emil needed professional help and that his actions were indicative of a deeper issue. In my eyes, he wasn't fit to be around Heidi, Mia, or the unborn baby until he sought the necessary mental health support. Hi guys, I'm Tammy, 36, female. I remember the day we moved to America, fresh off the boat, so to speak. I was just 19, wide-eyed and full of dreams. But it was Stella and Vito, our Italian neighbors, who really made us feel at home. They were like a second family to us, always there with a warm meal or a helping hand. And Vito, he was my partner in crime from the start. Growing up, I admired Stella, a single woman who worked tirelessly to ensure Vito had the best shot at success. I guess you could say we grew up together. Vito and I hung out in the same streets, went to the same school, and our families intertwined seamlessly. It was only natural that as we got older, Vito and I started seeing each other in a different light. We fell in love, and our families couldn't have been happier. It was like a fairy tale. I was 23 when we tied the knot, and we were ready to build a life together. Our families pitched in, helping us set up our first apartment. Everything was perfect. Or at least, that's what we thought. Then came the tragic news. Vito's father had passed away. It hit him hard, and I watched as the weight of grief settled on his shoulders. We were just starting our journey, and life threw us a curveball. Vito's father had never been a part of his life, at least not in the way any kid would wish for. It was like his dad had checked out long before we met. Even with Stella by his side, Vito held this resentment deep within him. The why and the how of his dad leaving him were questions that haunted him. Stella, in her moments of vulnerability, would share stories of an abusive, troubled man. Vito's father, drinking, drugs, and financial ruin seemed to be the common threads in these stories. But for Vito, the image of his father was tangled in a web of conflicted emotions. Despite everything, he longed for a connection, a hero to emerge from the ruins. And then the news of Vito Sr.'s passing hit us like a tidal wave. I could see it, the grief, the confusion, the pain, all swirling in Vito's eyes. He had lost a man he barely knew, yet one he desperately wanted to understand and love. In that moment, I had to step up and be the anchor to weather the storm of emotions that threatened to consume him. I became his sounding board, listening to the stories he dared not share with anyone else. The conflicting feelings of loss and relief mingled within him. I held him tight, reminding him that he wasn't alone in this, that he had a family, a real one, right there. As Vito fought with the weight of his father's passing, I knew he needed to find his own way to heal. He sought solace in the bottom of a bottle, and initially I let him be. I figured he needed time to drown his sorrows, and who was I to dictate the pace of his recovery? Everybody needed a little liquid courage every now and then, right? Unfortunately, the smell of alcohol became a familiar presence in his breath, and for a while I turned a blind eye. But as the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, it became apparent that things were spiraling out of control. There were nights when he didn't come home at all, and that was when I knew I had to step in. Putting my foot down, I decided it was time for an intervention. I invited Stella to join us. After all, she had weathered the storm of Vito Sr.'s turbulent existence longer than any of us. The three of us sat in the living room, the air tense with unspoken words and the lingering scent of concern. I spoke from the heart, expressing my worries and fears about Vito's well-being. Stella, too, chimed in with the perspective of a mother who had witnessed her son struggle with his father throughout the years. We weren't here to judge or condemn. We were here to offer support, to help Vito find healthier ways to cope. Oh, come on, what the hell is this? Vito, we need to talk. This can't go on. Your wife and I are worried about you, Vito. You can't keep going down this path. What path, huh? It's my life, not yours. Vito, we love you, but you can't keep drowning your pain like this. It's tearing you apart. Your father's gone, and I know it hurts, but this isn't the answer. I don't need a lecture from you two. I can handle my own problems. I'm a grown man. Vito, you're not handling anything. You're disappearing into this bottle, and we can't stand by and watch it happen. We want to help you heal, son, but you have to let us in. I don't need your help. I don't need anyone. Just leave me alone. Vito, please, just talk to us. We're not against you. We're on your side. We're your family, Vito. Let us help you. We tried pleading and begging some more, but he just shouted, I said, leave me alone. Life, after the failed intervention, became a blur of broken promises and shattered dreams. It seemed like the more I tried to reach out to Vito, the more he slipped away. I felt like a stranger in my own marriage, watching it crumble before my eyes. Stella and I became each other's confidants, sharing our fears and frustrations over the phone. We'd console each other, trying to make sense of the chaos Vito had unleashed upon our lives. But deep down, we both knew we were powerless against the grip of his addiction. Nights turned into a twisted routine. When Vito wouldn't stumble through our front door, he'd stay at Stella's place, his old home, taking advantage of the key he never returned. Each morning, I'd wake up to an empty bed, wondering if this was the day he'd finally come to his senses. The strain on our relationship was undeniable. The man I married, the one who held so much promise and potential, was slipping away. The romanticized image of us growing old together had faded into the harsh reality of dealing with a husband who had succumbed to his demons. And I was getting fed up with it all. One night, after yet another round of senseless arguments, Vito slurred out what he thought was a brilliant idea. A scheme, a plan to turn everything around. But by then, my patience had worn thin, and I couldn't bring myself to entertain his intoxicated fantasies. I longed for the man I fell in love with, not this distorted version fueled by addiction. I remember that night like it was yesterday. Vito stumbled into the room reeking of alcohol and desperation. His eyes held a wild, feverish glint as he cornered me. His words slurred, yet strangely intense. Listen, Tammy, we gotta have a baby. A baby? Vito, you're not in any condition to... But he cut me off, his voice growing louder and more aggressive. No, Tammy, you don't get it. Having a baby, that's how you leave your mark on the world. It's how you show everyone you've accomplished something. I need that. I need to leave something behind. I shook my head, a pit forming in my stomach. Vito, you're not thinking straight. Bringing a child into this mess isn't a solution. We need to fix our lives first. I know you're still hurting from your dad's death. I don't care. I want this, and you should too. In that moment, I realized I needed a strategy, a way to get through to him without escalating the situation. I took a deep breath and said, Vito, I'll only consider having kids with you if you clean up your act. I won't bring a baby into a messed up family dynamic. You need to get your crap together. I hate what your father did to you and your mom, and I'll be damned if I let it happen again. For a moment, conflicting emotions flashed across his face. He seemed torn between the desire for a family and the acknowledgement that his life was spiraling out of control. Finally, he sighed, a defeated look in his eyes. Fine, Tammy, I'll do it. I'll clean up and get my act together. We'll have a kid, and everything will be perfect. You'll see, everything is going to work out just fine. After Vito blurted out that he wanted a baby, I spilled the beans to Stella about everything that had happened the morning after. She wasn't sure it would work, but kept her fingers crossed, hoping it would help Vito get his act together. Vito gave it a shot, trying to turn things around, but the same old cycle of quitting booze and then going back to it haunted him for 3 whole years. It took a toll on us, and I started to wonder if it was even worth holding on to a future that looked less likely each day. When I brought up the idea of leaving, Vito, maybe feeling desperate, made a big promise. He swore off alcohol for good, saying things would be different from this time. I was skeptical, of course, given the past 3 years of broken promises, but surprisingly, Vito stuck to his word and managed 2 years of sobriety. I was 30 at the time we were celebrating his sobriety, and that's when I told him I had the perfect gift for him. I revealed that I was pregnant, telling him that I had stopped taking my birth control a couple of months before so that this would happen. There were mixed emotions, but Vito's happiness overshadowed any doubts. He pledged to be the best dad ever, better than his father, and for the first time in a while, a happy family seemed like it could be a reality. After a smooth and peaceful 9 months, I gave birth to a beautiful baby girl named Kerry. Life seemed perfect for us and our little family, and things were going well between us all. I had a beautiful life, a beautiful daughter. Perhaps I took it for granted at some point because everything went to shit when Kerry hit the ripe age of 3. Around this time, Vito started acting all kinds of strange. He'd stroll in looking dodgy, and I couldn't help but wonder if he was up to some cheating or worse, a relapse. Sadly, my suspicions weren't misplaced. Turns out Vito slipped up one night during an office party and started on the alcohol again. He revealed this to me when I caught him one night sneaking in at 3 a.m. smelling like some cheap liqueur. I was disgusted. I didn't want this crap in my house, and I was this close to kicking him out because, like I said all those years ago, I wouldn't allow that nonsense in my child's life. I tried not to explode in anger, wanting to acknowledge the progress he'd made, but frustration got the better of me. I hoped that the battle with alcoholism was behind us for good, so I wanted to hear him out and see what triggered him to mess up so badly once again. Babe, I know how hard you've been trying, and I don't take the past couple of years of our lives in vain. It's been very good for us. So please tell me what the hell you think you're doing. Don't you know you've got a good thing going on? Yeah, Tammy, I know. I'm sorry. I don't know what happened. I think you do know what happened, and I'm not here to judge you. Just talk to me. Hello? Are you even listening to me? Don't piss me off, Vito. I'm being very patient with you, even though I should kick you out of this house for breaking your promise. Even though I was trying to get through to him, he just seemed very finicky, like my words were going in one ear and coming out the other. My frustration burst into a yelling match. I demanded answers, questioning why he insisted on wrecking our lives. Vito looked more anxious than usual, finally let slip something that made me want to smack the snot out of him. Vito, what the heck is your problem? You've been acting so weird lately, weirder than usual. No, Tammy, it's not like that. Well, what is it then? Spit it out. I I'm in some serious trouble, Tammy. I got into it with some shady guys. If I don't pay back these guys, things are going to get really bad. I was beyond furious, screaming, cursing at Vito for the colossal mess he had gotten us into. He was lucky that little Carrie was peacefully sleeping in her room, or our home might have transformed into a bloody crime scene. I demanded he spill everything, leaving nothing hidden. Vito reluctantly began to reveal the disgusting details of his situation. It started with harmless bets among friends, but soon spiraled into a full-blown gambling addiction. Perfect. On top of battling alcoholism, he's now a gambler. Just great. Anyways, he kept losing money, spiraling further into debt. Debt that I had no clue about until the moment, mind you. Vito confessed to borrowing money from some shady guys, assuring them that he would repay every cent and more. However, his losing streak persisted and the shady guys grew impatient. Their threats escalated, vowing to visit our home and resort to violence if Vito didn't settle the debt. The rage within me reached new heights. I couldn't fathom how he'd let things escalate to this point. The safety of our family was now at stake because of his reckless choices, and I was done. And then in the midst of my anger, Vito had what he considered a brilliant idea. "But babe, I have a solution to all of this." "What solution? Unless 35 grand is going to fall from the sky, I don't see us getting out of this." "You've seen how beautiful Carrie is. What if we put her in those pageant shows? She's going to be a guaranteed winner. I mean, just look at that face. And they're paying these kids a buttload of money, babe. I swear this is going to work." "No way, Vito. I won't let you exploit our daughter like that. Those pageants are toxic, feeding into this messed up beauty industry. I won't have Carrie paraded around like a doll for a bunch of perverts. And even if it wasn't so toxic, I wouldn't let you bring her into your mess." "But I'm serious, Vito. You got another thing coming if you think you're putting her in that pageant." "Babe, just listen. If you ever bring up something like that again, I swear I'll rip your ears off. You hear me?" After the argument, Vito sulkily left, seemingly offended that I didn't endorse his reckless plan. He really must be an idiot if he thought that I would say yes. When he slammed the door and left, I was left alone with my thoughts, thinking about the gravity of the situation. It became clear to me that I needed to put as much distance as possible between us. The next morning, bright and early, I hastily packed essentials for Carrie and myself. We went to my parents' house, seeking peace from the chaos that had threatened our lives. Vito returned home late that night, only to find our absence. I knew this because he left a crap ton of frantic calls demanding answers about where we were and how we could leave him. During our heated phone conversation, I dropped the bombshell. I wanted a divorce. The chaos and danger that Vito had introduced into our lives were too much for me to bear. I knew both Carrie and I deserved better. Amidst the heated exchange, Vito broke down, his sobs audible over the phone. Despite the emotional commotion, he agreed to the divorce, claiming he would do anything to make me happy. Thank God, Vito was actually very compliant with the clauses of the divorce. I said I wanted full custody of Carrie and that I didn't care much about settlements or hefty alimony. I just wanted to get away from that man before the crap hit the fan, you know. By the end of that same year, we were officially done. As you can imagine, this put a serious strain on my relationship with Stella. She understood my side of things, but of course her loyalty was still with her son, so talking and hanging out was put at a halt. I was very sad for Carrie. She barely understood what was going on, but losing her father and her grandma so soon must have been hard for her. I'm hoping that when she's older she'll understand where I was coming from and that I did everything to protect her. So 3 more years rolled by and Carrie hit the big 6. I managed to build a life for myself without Vito, chilling in a nice little apartment with my baby girl. Things were going smoothly, and I really didn't want to hear from Vito or know what he was up to after that whole mess with owing money to people. I was just living a peaceful life, focused on taking care of my daughter. Then out of the blue one night there was a knock on my door, and when I swung it open, there's Stella, looking all helpless and worn out, like, what on earth is going on now? Stella, what are you doing here? Look, there isn't much time. How did you get my address? I got it from your parents, Tammy. Look, Vito isn't doing well. Oh, tell me about it. I know, Stella. No, like he really isn't doing well. Ever since the divorce, he's been a complete wreck. Nobody can get through to him. He keeps moaning and groaning that he's saying that the only solution is if he can see his daughter at least one last time. I don't know, Stella. I still have a lot of love for you, you know that, but I can't put Carrie in danger like that. Please, Tammy, I'm begging you. I've tried everything. Why do you think I haven't contacted you in so long? Do you think I want to be here? I wish I could find any other way, but this is the only solution. I then turned to see Carrie, who was off in the distance, watching TV innocently. This is the only thing that will save him, Tammy. Seeing his daughter, please, you have to let me take her. After seeing her crying and thinking about it for a while, I caved into Stella's plea to take Carrie to see Vito. I figured with Stella there, everything would be fine and she could handle her and that Vito wouldn't harm my baby. Stella and I agreed that Carrie would sleep over for 2 nights, and if all went well, I might reconsider shared custody. Stella was super thankful, and I went to pack a bag for Carrie, sending her off with Grandma Stella. 2 nights came and went, and I was expecting Carrie and Stella to come home. But it was getting late. I kept calling Stella to see what was up. Eventually she answered, saying that Carrie wanted to stay an extra night. When I asked to talk to Carrie, Stella said she was sleeping and that they'd chat in the morning. I was a little suspicious, but I chalked it up to typical motherly paranoia, so I didn't want to go off the deep end and go ballistic on them. I mean, 3 years had passed, so it was only normal for them to want to spend as much time with Carrie. So I agreed for Carrie to come in the morning. But just like the day before, Stella didn't drop her off and avoided my calls until late at night. I figured Stella was just being an overly attached grandma, and when I managed to talk to Carrie that night, she seemed okay, saying she missed her daddy and grandma. That's when I said I'd pick her up myself in the morning. But when I asked for the location, Stella dodged the questions. Another day passed, and then another day, and still no peep, no nothing. After 5 days of this, I had enough. I needed to get my daughter back. I activated the Apple AirTag I put in Carrie's bag and found out where she was. So I went to the house and banged on the door. Nobody answered, but I could hear Carrie crying inside. So what did I do? I decided to break the door down. When I got in, I saw Carrie dressed up in some poofy dress with tons of makeup, crying because she didn't like any of it. Her hair was in some big updo, and she looked very uncomfortable. But what shocked me even more was right by her side there was Vito and Stella getting her ready for what I could only guess was a pageant. What the heck? I lost it. Absolutely lost it on them both, demanding to know what the heck they thought they were doing. Vito and Stella stumbled over their words, trying to explain that Vito was still drowning in debt and they needed money, so they signed Carrie up for a competition. Luckily, I was there before they could go through with their foolishness. I was beyond furious and decided to call the police. Stella and Vito begged me not to, but I wasn't having any of it. I started wiping off the makeup, yanking Carrie out of that ridiculous dress, and dismantling her painful-looking hairstyle. I told them they'd rot in jail because I'd exposed Vito's gambling, and I hoped the people he owed would come for them and deal with them accordingly. Tammy, please listen to us. You know, Stella, When you came to me 5 days ago, I thought that you were being sincere. That's why I let you keep my daughter for 5 days. I thought that her trustworthy grandma would take care of her, as she promised. But clearly, I was wrong. I expected this type of crap from Vito, but you? This is a new low. You are both sick. I guess the apple didn't fall far from the tree. The police had arrived, and I had put my daughter in the car, telling her to lie down and try and rest. She was obviously relieved to see her mama come to save her, and I couldn't be happier that I came at the time I did. Who knows what could have happened if I had come later? When the police approached me, I explained to them that my ex-husband was violating the terms of our divorce. He wasn't supposed to see Kerry, and he was a known gambler and alcoholic, and I was scared for my daughter's safety. The police arrested Vito, but left Stella behind. I drove off, leaving Stella crying on the doorstep and Vito being pushed into a squad car. Good riddance.